This content is personal experience, not medical advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare professional. Guest views are their own.
Thank you so much for being here. Are you all having a good time?
Yeah!
Okay. I'd like to give a special thank you to the group of people that are on stage, our speakers, and for being here, and you know, for getting us out of the heat in the air conditioning, so we can learn some good information. So without further ado, and please hold your applause till the end. But we have Don Bennett, Karen Ramsey, Dr. Sam Mielkarski, Jules Bailey, John Kohler, Dr. Arelli, and Eli Martyr. Please give it up for our speakers this year. And so what we want to do here is, this is very interactive. This is for the guests. That's what we're here to do. Texas Fruit Festival is here to serve the guests, and the speakers are here to help the guests. So we're going to leave plenty of time for Q&A, but I want to kind of set the tone. I have some questions of my own, and so I wanted to ask. And by the way, just some quick rules or guidelines and so forth. You don't have to wait for me to give you permission to jump in or talk. You know, so if you feel the need to add something to the discussion, just make yourself heard. And this is an open dialogue. Certainly, the people on the stage don't agree on everything, and there's areas we disagree on. But we are here, right? And we're in dialogue with each other in a respectful way. So I guess I'm curious to hear from the individual speakers. Just to start, what's the one thing that you bring to Texas Fruit Festival as a speaker? I believe everyone has unique talents and gifts and things that really make them special in what they bring to the table. What's your superpower, let's say, as an educator, as someone who shares information? What's one thing that you bring to people with your information that you feel is different and is unique? And whoever wants to jump in, please go for it. I'd love to hear from everybody on this one.
Well, I'll start at this end, and then we can go down, I guess. I've always been very insightful. I've always been very inquisitive, thinking outside the box, and there's nothing more outside the box than a raw vegan diet and lifestyle. That's pretty outside the box. And what I also bring to the table is a lot of empirical evidence, because I've been counseling people for a long time, especially people who tried one of the raw vegan diets, like one of the 7 raw vegan diets, and failed to thrive over years of doing it. So why did they do it? So that empirical evidence and just questioning everything, which I'm sure we all want to do that. We want to question things because we're all trying to get at whatever the truth is, though the heavens may fall.
First of all, I have history with this way of eating. My grandmother in 1921 had asthma and emphysema. She switched to it was a primarily raw vegan diet after reading the mucusless healing diet system that came out the first printing was in 1918. I rebelled against it for a good part of my life, but when I got it, what happened to my grandmother and why she healed from asthma and emphysema, I got it and I was able to heal my own challenges. So that's one thing that I bring is history. And I also feel that as a woman going through my life and being raw vegan since 1994, I bring longevity with the way that I eat and think, and also like Don, my father always taught me to ask a lot of questions. And I've been doing that all these years, and I'm still really loving the raw vegan lifestyle.
Grandma.
Love it. Love it.
Being a Leo, I'm a man of principles.
Yes.
So it's one unique thing that I think that I've brought to every fruit festival I've ever spoken at are principles. So there's a saying, methods are many, principles are few. Methods often change, principles hardly ever do. When you empower somebody with principles, then they're empowered for a lifetime. And at that point, they can succeed better on their journey. So I'll give you an example of that real quickly. If you were going to do strength training and you wanted to apply the principle of overload and recovery, that's how you're going to get stronger. The method would be kettlebells, a barbell, a dumbbell, TheraBand, body weight. It doesn't matter. Everyone wants to argue over that, but those are methods. And that's usually not the reason people aren't succeeding. It's the principle they're violating or not following. When they understand principles, then they're usually more successful. So that's definitely one thing that I think is unique. And then the other thing is just the unique life path that I've had, being a clinician for quite a long time now, dealing with hundreds and thousands of patients at this point with various conditions and helping them rehabilitate. It's given me a unique perspective on how to help people. And as people have given me feedback from a lot of the festivals, you have a foot in both worlds. It's like you're physical but metaphysical. Like you're out there, but you're here at the same time, and it's a unique perspective. So I think that's also something that I'm able to reach a lot of people because of that.
Hey, I'm Jules, and I would say I bring 3 things to the table that make me unique, and that would be, first off, I'm really authentic. So when I make mistakes, I share about those, and I don't sugarcoat it. I let people know, if I've made a mistake in my personal choices, and I let people know if I'm doing great. It's all authentic. And the other thing is that I have done free birthing. I've done completely natural, unmedicated, no medical people around to births, and raw vegan pregnancies, raised children raw vegan from the beginning. And third, I am a connector. So I was doing a lot of coaching, and I'm no longer doing that. Instead, now I'm from coach to connector. So I just get awesome people connected with awesome people who are in this movement, helping people seeking information to find the right coach, helping people meet other friends, companions. Often this is a lonely journey, so I'm just connecting everyone, and that's my role, connector. So yeah, in the Divine Family community, if you guys want to join, I help people to find who they need on their journey.
All right, my name is John Kohler, and what I think I bring to the table here today is practicality. So, I've been living this lifestyle since 1995. I'm a very pragmatic person myself. If you ever seen me online, I've had to learn how to deal with sourcing food at produce terminals, getting the lowest price ever, going to 10 different places to buy fruits and vegetables, or going to farms, or even growing my own food and how to do that the best way possible, or how to use the best kitchen appliances to actually prepare and not destroy the nutrients in the food. So these are the things that I live by, and these are the things that I love to share, because we all have different talents, and this is mine. Like, how do you really do this lifestyle affordably, practically, and to the best of your ability? And so that's what I've had to learn over these many years, and that's what I love to share.
Well, what I think I bring to the table is perspective, because I am in the middle of 2 different lines of thought. On one end, you have naturopathic, natural hygienists concepts. On the other hand, you have allopathic scientific community. So I'm kind of in the middle, and I invite you to be inquisitive and to have more perspective, and to not to take opposites, right? As a Libra, I like balance. So I think that if you are so quick to reject, things that are coming from the medical side, don't go automatically and embrace everything that you hear on the other side, because not like total radicalism is not good. So there's common ground, and there's some things that can be rescued, like calculating things tracking your nutrition and all of that. So that's coming from science, right? What is measured is done, and I think that's basically my role, to bring perspective and balance.
You can applaud. What do I bring to the table? If I were giving a more overt answer, I might say that I'm offering a perspective, right? A novel perspective. When the average person hears the term, I don't know, fruit-eating hippie, I can guarantee you the last thing they're thinking of is a stuntman, right? They don't put those two together. And I would say that I'm probably an aggregation of a couple of unique characteristics that don't usually go together. So when I say perspective, I guess the way I live my lifestyle gives a person just a perspective on what is possible while still living a raw food lifestyle, right? And yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. So I wanna talk right now to the guest that's here, and I want to talk to someone who's looking at the speakers on stage and thinking, wow, these people they're killing it, and they make it look so easy to do this lifestyle, and flawlessly. But a lot of people have problems with momentum, or people self-sabotage. So maybe in 6 months from now, someone's going to say, I went to Texas Fruit Festival and I learned all this great information, and I felt so enthusiastic, and I had all this momentum. I started eating great, and then I fell off, and then I wasn't able to stay consistent, and then I kind of started wandering and drifting. And a lot of people on this stage have done a lot of coaching, and this comes up over and over, where people just struggle with this part, and I've been there myself. And so, can you talk to the person that's here right now and they're feeling enthusiastic and excited about going forwards, but how do they keep that resiliency and to push through, right, in a few months later when it's tempting to go this other way, or they're coming up against struggles? How do people stop from the self-sabotage and really have that resiliency?
Well, let's start here and we can go down the pipe. I say make sure you get at least one buddy. And look where you are right now. There's almost 200 people here. Take names, take phone numbers, get a buddy. And also, the people who are most successful with this are very independent-minded people. So if you are one of those, you got it made. If you're not, just remember, you are you, be you. Don't be like everybody else. You're going to hear all the negative stuff, and if something happens and you start falling off, like, oh, I'm getting pressure from my family, call your buddy up. That's my biggest recommendations.
Were you saying like a mentor or something? Cool.
Accountability partner.
First, I would say have patience, because it might not happen overnight that suddenly you're not feeling well, or you want to go to a raw vegan approach, but it's not working for you immediately. I would say give it time and patience, and also find community. What I did at the very beginning was I would have potlucks, and people would come. I remember in 1991, I had my first potluck, and I had 2 people. I think my friend Carolyn and somebody else. I think there was hardly anybody, but it grew every year. It grew by leaps and bounds. And one year I had 122 people in my home for my Thanksgiving. And this November will be the 34th year. So just by doing that, by bringing people in and letting them try different fruits and salads and sharing it with them, you start to grow community and friends. So that is really key. I also have a Super Healthy Raw online newsletter that's free. So if anybody hasn't signed up for that, I have that, and I send out events and recipes and just ways that people can learn and grow. And it's important, if you're not having live events and you're not with people live, that you do things online, that you be part of a community and you connect with other people. Because I'll put up live events and you might not know that some of these things are happening, and you could be involved with other people communicating and grow a like-minded group of new friends. And that's what you're doing by coming to festivals like the Texas Fruit Festival, Woodstock Fruit Festival. The fruit festivals are really the best place to go.
I'd say the 3 C's are really important. Community was already covered, so I don't need to reiterate what Don and Karen said because they said it well. But definitely reach out. If you don't have it, create it. There's 4 C's. You don't have it, create it, but community is going to be big for sure. The second C is going to be commitment. You have to make a decision at some point. Like, your health can't be a hobby. It has to be a priority. If you don't prioritize your health, if you just dabble in it, it's just hard to be successful. So if you really are serious about it and want to succeed on this, you just, like anything, any relationship you have in your life requires commitment, whether it's to a spouse or even yourself, but even the relationship you have with food. And realize that that relationship has to spill over to the other health factors as well. You have to make a commitment to those things. And then the third C would be centeredness, which is bringing yourself back into your path and purpose here on this planet, and realizing that food is just such a small part of our daily life, and to not be so obsessed with it. Unfortunately, we live in a culture that just revolves around food, but when you feed your body with other things and truly at the soul level, you start to realize, like, the role of food is just to act as a vehicle to allow you to live out your greater life's purpose. Right? This is a sacred temple, and you just have to decide what you want to put in it. But if you put the good things in it, it's a lot easier to keep yourself a clear, conscious, connected channel, and you can be more centered and focus on what your true purpose here is.
Well, everyone said such great things so far. Obviously, my thing is also community. I started this journey not by myself. I could not have done it by myself. It's like drugs, Foods today have hundreds of drugs in them that we're addicted to, thousands maybe. And so we have to treat it pretty seriously when we decide we want to get off these things, because the mind is really tricky, and the mind will tell you, no, you just need to have some more donuts, no. And so yeah, you gotta reach out to somebody, and you gotta be vulnerable. You gotta get used to being vulnerable, and you have to call the right people. If you call the wrong people, they're gonna say, well, what's wrong with you? You don't need to eat like that. Just come to the bar. Let's have a drink. Let's have a cheeseburger. You got to call the right people. So you got to make sure you have them on speed dial. Got to get connected. That's what you're doing here. So kind of repetitive, but yeah. And the other thing I would say is to understand that it takes time, and it can feel really hard some days, and it's going to feel really hard some days, and then it doesn't. And you just have to get there. So you just have to keep waking up and trying again. And as long as you do that, then you will arrive where you want to be.
All right, so I would say, coming from a more practical standpoint, because all these are all amazing and very important, but for me personally, you want to have a reason why, and remind yourself of the reason why you're doing this in the first place. Why do you want to go raw vegan? Is it you want to have amazing athletical performance and all these things, or do you want to have great health and longevity? I got into this because I had a life-threatening illness, spinal meningitis, caused by complement immune deficiency, and my big reason is to, have a stronger immune system so that I don't get sick again. And nowadays I just try to optimize my health and have the health and be as healthy as I can be. So like, I think everybody should write it on their mirror, either write it on a mirror or, print out a paper and just like read it and remind yourself every single day why you're doing this. And just put that in your head, because either you're gonna move towards what your goal, or you're gonna move away from it. And when you fall off the wagon, you're moving away from your goal. So what is the goal? What is the target? And you're gonna keep more on track. That actually helped me keep on track a lot in the younger years.
I would say learn to say no more often, because if you are in like society, wherever you work, you go to school, if you have a 9 to 5, if your family members are in the world doing everything that the world does, people pleasing, so just learn to say no. The people who usually criticize you, I heard some saying that goes like this, like, I've never admired the person that criticizes me. Always the criticism comes from somebody who looks up to you, or who is jealous of you or envious of you, because people who are above you want to see you progress. So don't pay attention to the negativity of people. Learn to say no. If you really admire the people that are doing the things that are not, that are not conducive to a healthy lifestyle, if you look at them, there's nothing to admire in that, right? So you just have to be firm in your convictions, and just follow all the things that you've heard from the rest of the speakers. And let's see what Ellie has to say.
Motivation. So how do you hold on to that motivation that you get from an event like this? And sometimes I like to take questions like these and just turn them over in my head and start from the beginning. And maybe I could ask, well, what is motivation? Right? And motivation, it's an internal soul quality that all conscious beings can express. Yeah, it's an internal quality. However you slice it, it's an internal personal quality that you experience. And now there are many things out there that can influence your motivation for sure. People, places, cats, whatever it is. But I think what I would say is that we make an error if we externalize the source of your motivation, right? Motivation's an internal quality. So it needs to be internally generated if it's going to be sustaining. So if you externalize your source of motivation and look to the gathering as the reason why you're going to be extra motivated from now on, right? You are always going to be chasing some external source of motivation. It needs to come from within, and that's when it becomes truly sustaining. It's the same old thing as I can't give you $2 unless I have it myself, right? That's what I would say.
So I did not know that there was going to be a dance party next door in that space, but we're rolling with the punches as we always do. Since it's not so hot anymore in here or outside, could we get those blinds? Could y'all help to open the blinds so we can get a little bit more light in here? Because we're going to do some audience Q&A here in a little bit.
Well, we're leaving. We're going to the party.
Oh, y'all. Okay. So, okay, we'll see you at the dance party. And then lastly, I just wanted to say, watching the interpreters work behind the speakers. How cool is that? How cool is that? Have a hand for our interpreters. So I want to talk about discernment because I think discernment is one of those things that it's one of the great challenges of life, and it's what we all struggle with. And we live in a world that's confusing and complex, right? And the older we get, when you're a child, you think that the adults have all the answers and they explain your questions. But then when you get older, you realize, okay, well, 99% of those adults probably had no idea what they were talking about. And we just do our best, right? Well, we try to navigate the world, and we try to use the tools that we have to figure out what we're all trying to figure out here, which is, what path should I take? what should I do? When I leave this event, what decisions should I make so I can create a better life? And so I'd like to hear from the speakers. What tools do you use? What insights do you have? Any thoughts that you can share with the guests here about how to discern the truth and discern the right decisions, or it's hard to say right decisions, but just to discern the best path forward for ourselves, please.
Well, one thing that I've spoke about today is whatever you're learning, especially about health issues, learn as a researcher and not as a student. Extremely important. Students tend not to question what they're taught. Researchers, by their very nature, question everything. Nothing personal. They just question everything because they understand there's a lot of misinformation out there from well-meaning people. Your own family could really care about you, and they honestly believe that you can't get enough protein from a raw vegan diet. But that's misinformation. They just don't know that. So that's one thing. Another is a good tool is join a Facebook group. There's a lot of raw vegan face groups out there. Some are better than others, I think. That's an opinion. I have one, it's got 11,000 members in it. You find people really easy that way. People say, hey, anyone in Michigan? Anyone in Michigan? And all the Michigan people will say, yeah, I am. And all of a sudden there's a potluck that pops up just from that alone. So that's a good tool.
I believe that, and what I've seen is that a lot of people have difficulty, not because they don't want to make the switch, they often do, but the emotional part of it holds them back. Also, pressures, family pressures, friend pressures, and being isolated. And so the combination of emotionally inside questioning whether it's going to work for you, and also having food cravings for things that you were eating is difficult. So I like to give people positive belief statements. These are affirmations that you take and you write down what you want for yourself, and you say it in the present tense as if it's already happening now. And you take the statements and you hang them up on the mirror in the bathroom or wherever you are during the day that you're going to see them the most often, and say them several times a day. And when you say positive belief statements to yourself that often, they become reality. I know that's right. And that's what I've seen.
I think quietude is the place you're going to find that it's easiest to discern things, especially in today's world, which is full of distractions. Everybody's vying for your attention. It's an attention economy. So if you spread yourself and become fragmented and put your consciousness in a lot of different directions, it's really hard to tune in, because that's basically what it's going to come down to, is tuning in. I look at the amount of time that people spend tuning out every day. They've mastered that. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then they go, how'd this happen to me? I don't understand why I couldn't. Because you practice tuning out. Like, how do you get good at anything? You practice. And the art of tuning in is a skill that is, anybody in this room can do it, because it's a God-given thing. And if you practice tuning in, you will be tuned in. And then it's easier to discern. But I think discernment comes the best in quietude. It's not to say you shouldn't move your body and listen to music and jump around. You should. That's usually just to get the stuck energy out of the way. But then you sit in quietude for discernment, and the downloads will come at rapid speeds. And you'll know it's right for you by continuing to tune in, and you just know. If you want to use a tool, then put your hand on your heart, since it's the master regulator usually in the body anyway, and ask your body, is this right for me? Or show me a yes, show me a no. If yes is an expansion and no is a contraction, is this right for me? You'll get the answer. But you have to listen with your heart, not your mind. Your mind will play all kinds of tricks. So I think that's a really important thing. And the last thing I'll say is this: like, everybody in this room, myself included, suffers from some form of delusion or derangement. Like, we're all on the spectrum. Because that's the good news. Join the club. All right, so the purpose of a spiritual practice is to just curb that delusion. Okay, it's like, oh, he's spiritual, he's got a cool necklace on. It's like, you can dress any way you want to become the person you're supposed to be, but the practice, whether it's Qigong or yoga or art or journaling or breathwork, it doesn't matter. It was whatever you will do, but the purpose of that practice, I think everyone should have one, because that is what's going to curb that delusion or derangement, so that you can discern much easier. Because you're more present, you're not fragmented in 100 directions. That's the purpose. It's not, your spiritual practice should not be an escape. It's okay to go somewhere, but you need to come back as a better version of yourself and give that to the world.
Yeah, so that pretty much kind of leads right into what I was going to say. I feel like if you want the truth, you got to try it and listen to your body. Don't just look at somebody and listen to them and say, oh, they have the truth. You have the truth. You just have to uncover it in meditation, breath work, like he was saying, but try it out. And not just for an hour, not just for a day. You've got to actually try it out for a length of time where you can actually get those results that you are seeking, whether they're there or not. And then also just making sure that you're not getting brainwashed. We're such easily brainwashed creatures, and that's not an insult. It's just the way we are. We're communal beings, and we start to notice what people are doing around us, and by default we have mirror neurons, and we can just start doing what everyone else is doing. And so yeah, it's really important to check in with yourself. What's right for someone else may not be the perfect thing for you, but definitely try. If you're feeling called, that's the sign that it's time to try it out and go all in. Or if you dip your toe and you say, well, that didn't work, that's your own fault. You've got to really give it a try. That's what I've got to say.
All right, so my answer is more of a practical one, as I'm the practical guy myself. So coming from the practicality standpoint, or whatever standpoint, I would say, get a second opinion. And my parents taught me when we were kids, when we go to the doctor, they'd get a diagnosis, we'd maybe see a second doctor to make sure the first doctor was actually accurate. And a lot of us here, we would probably agree on 90-95% of the stuff we're going to say, but then there'll be that 10% that we're going to be like, whoa, he said this, or she said that, and he said, whatever. And what's right? Well, what I would encourage all you guys to do is get a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth opinion. You could ask each one of us while we're here, wherever in the courtyard or wherever, if we're still here, our opinion on that specific discussion topic. And then don't even just believe us, then pull up ChatGPT like somebody did earlier, right? And then ask ChatGPT and then see if, in general, but not always, right, the overwhelming opinion from, if everybody says the same answers, that one guy, that one person may not be accurate. But if everybody else agreed, typically, that might be accurate. And if ChatGPT agreed with the 8 people, or the 7 people, and that one person is the oddball, then you gotta start questioning, that specific thing that one person is saying. Not everything, just because you shouldn't disqualify somebody because they have a difference of opinion or their experiences are different. And then also, like everybody else said, like Joel said, we need to also check in with us, because it may or may not actually work for you as well.
I took my ChatGPT example, but let me think. So discernment, I think we need to have the awareness to observe where people are coming from, listen to the message, but also see the messenger. Most of the times, people who critique veganism, raw veganism, usually are very aggressive, and there's a lot of animosity towards us. So rather than presenting arguments, people come with attacks, right? So yes, maybe there is some truth in certain critiques that we receive, not eating enough calories or fasting a lot of time and all of that. So yes, for sure, that's not correct. But again, discernment with observing how the person is acting. So if it's an aggression, if it's violence, I think the person is talking from their own fears and biases and insecurities. So pay attention to the messenger, but also how the message is delivered, and what is beyond that or behind the scenes. What are the intentions and the motivations? And the best example that I can tell you is people against veganism and raw veganism, and we see it in social media every day.
I think this might be a little bit of a silly answer on the face of it, but I would say one of the best tools that you can give to yourself is to learn how to read. Seriously, learn how to read. Yeah, it's an indispensable tool, and I would argue that most people probably aren't doing it correctly, right? There's a certain strategy that you can use to read a book and actually absorb the material well. How many times have you gone through a couple pages and you're like, oh yeah, what was that, right? It happens all the time. It's because you have to learn how to read, right? Lots of strategies, chunking words properly, making sure that you're not reading, don't sound the actual words in your head, just see pictures moving, right? Let the words come alive. Summarizing your notes at the end of every chapter or the end of every page. Some of the books that I read, it looks like I bloody wrote them. There's so many doodles and diagrams and notes everywhere. So when you do that, okay, you absorb a lot more from your book, right? It's almost like you activate a creative process. You guys are familiar with this phenomenon where you don't really learn as much when you're receiving, but when you package and teach something, that's when all the learning happens, right? As long as you can use that strategy when you're creatively writing your own notes in a book, oh, now the concept really sinks in, right? So there's a strategy to reading a book. A lot of people might tell me, hey, I don't like reading physical books, right? My answer to them would be like, learn how to read. Right? Not acceptable. You need to learn how to read and be comfortable with physical books, right? So that you can make it your own, interact with it. Okay, it's not the same with a digital copy of the book. So if you can do that really well, that's a tool and a half, man. That's what helped me over these years, right? Learn to read.
All right. I have two remaining questions, and then for the speakers here. So as we get into opening this up for Q&A, right, we're going to have questions from you, from the guests, of you have a question in your mind of, I want to know this question, I want to know your answer to this question, right? And when we think about, who are the speakers that we want to have at Texas Fruit Festival, and what I love is the word insight, because with a great speaker, with a great educator, or someone you can learn from, a mentor, or something like that, you get the information. Maybe you get the information that you want, that you're asking for, but you get information beyond the obvious, beyond what you think you should be learning about. And so my question for the speakers is, what's one piece of information, or what's something that you want to share that the audience member may not be thinking they should ask about? What should the audience member actually be asking about, but they don't know that they should ask about it because it hasn't occurred? It's an insight that you have, that can help us see a different perspective.
Well, something my mom taught me a long time ago when I just became a teenager is she said to me, think with your own brain. Do not think with other people's brains. Your brain is just as good as anyone else's, so think with your own brain and be independent. My mom taught me to be very independent, research things, and be able to recognize other people's insights. This goes back to reading things that other people have written. Look for the insights that they have. You can recognize insights in the writings of other people, and that would be a recommendation I'd have also.
I want to think about that question a little bit more. So I'm going to pass it on.
Coming back to Karen Ramsey, coming back.
I think something very important to ask yourself is, or ask in general, is what is a realistic timeline for achieving what I say it is that I want in my life, and then what am I willing to do to achieve that? Because if you take a bigger picture perspective that way, I think it tends to reframe something to where then you can break it down into smaller timelines or smaller chunks, and it's easier to end up where you want to go. I think so often people aren't as clear about that as they need to be, and then therefore they end up going down all these crazy paths to finally maybe even go full circle back to where they were. But from the beginning, and I think it gives people a lot of perspective, especially if you talk to people with experience on the path, like, yeah, like, be patient, it takes this long, or it took this long, or hey, someone like John Kohler can tell you, like, hey, don't make these mistakes I made, it took me X amount of years to figure it out, and he's going to share nuggets with you, or Don, or my other colleagues up here. It just, listen to those things, because it can streamline your process. But overall, what is a realistic time frame for you? Not just in general, but for you, like what you're willing to do. And then that way you can enjoy the journey and not be in such a hurry to get there. Because if you get there, there's always going to be another there. And that's the trap. So.
I think that the questions that should be asked, that haven't been asked yet today, are the ones lingering in your head that you feel too vulnerable to ask. This happens all the time in this lifestyle. So many people have come to me and they've said, I've wanted to get to know raw vegans and learn about it, but you guys are so intimidating. You all seem perfect, and how could I possibly do that? So I think we really need more vulnerability and asking those questions that maybe we feel might make us sound stupid or might make us sound like we don't know what we're talking about, because that's okay. We all started where we didn't know what we were talking about, right? And so I think that more vulnerability, it creates more healing, it creates more unity. And so just, if something's in your mind and you want to say it, say it. Open your throat chakra and let it fly, because that's going to encourage all of your friends sitting around you to do the same thing. And then, there's going to be a domino effect of healing.
All right, the insight I would like everybody to leave with, or that I could share, is the insight of our connection with nature that unfortunately in our lives today is missing. Most people are living on their cell phone. We all pretty much live in houses, right? Our food comes from nature, but it's grown on these industrial agriculture farms. You don't even have a connection with the food that you are eating, The grass is plastic out there. Thank you, Jules. I mean, we are losing nature. We're supposed to be eating this natural raw food diet, but yet it's not being grown in nature like we would all hopefully like it to be, right? So I went on a 2-hour hike yesterday, like in nature, right? Not sitting in a room. I really want people to have that connection with nature, especially in this diet and life that we live. Learn about wild foods around you. Grow a garden. I mean, a lot of my life is actually outside in my garden, harvesting food, growing food. I have a kitchen set up outside where I could just be connected with nature, and it's brought a lot of calm and peace to my life. Like, we cannot, it's so important to have that nature connection, and in any lifestyle, but especially this one, we should totally have it.
Have you thought about yours?
Oh, yeah, I can go. So a couple of things. First, I love the nature thing that John just brought up. That is like so important. Most people are sitting inside on their computers and their phones, and I know a lot of people who never go outside.
92%.
Is that the number? Wow.
On average.
Yeah, I make a habit of going outside like very, very frequently and hugging trees. Like you have like really got to get connected to the plants, to the leaves, if you can go barefooted, and if you're in a place where you can, hug trees, touch the plants, just be connected to nature. And the other thing that came up for me is that most people just, like, I feel like they believe that they don't deserve to take care of themselves, or they don't know how to take care of themselves. I'm reading a book right now called Loving Kindness, and it is such a wonderful book. And there's these phrases that it recommends saying to yourself or to others, and it goes like this. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with an open heart. And I really love that. And just even saying that to yourself, I think just makes you want to explore and try things and be happy, healthy, safe, and live with an open heart.
So what you should ask yourself, or what kind of questions you should have, I think one of the things that are overlooked is if your health condition, whatever you're trying to solve, or any health improvement that you want to have with a particular diet, rather than asking what kind of food can I eat, what kind of food can I stop eating, how many calories, how much protein, you know, whatever your goal is, weight loss, for example. Many people come to this lifestyle for weight loss or healing autoimmune conditions. Ask yourself, is this a diet-related problem? Because most of the times, autoimmune conditions come from problems within the family, or like Jules was saying, like the chakra, right? The throat chakra, I think, not speaking up your truth. And then you have a lot of internalized problems that manifest as diseases, right? So first of all, ask, is this gonna be solved by food, right? Or do I need to look at therapy? Or do I need to heal my childhood trauma? Maybe I'm overweight because I overeat, because I have an emptiness that is not able to be fulfilled with food. So most things are, yes, for sure, solved by lifestyle, diet, movement, exercise, sunlight, nature. But other things are more internal, and also you have to wonder, is this an internal emotional problem that I have to solve?
Life is gonna happen, whether you want it to or not. It's just going to happen. And sometimes life compels you to have to pivot, to adapt, okay? I get to see this very, very dramatically in my life. You know, I get to work one day and I have to hop over a fence, let's just say. And then 2 minutes before action, they say, "Oh, Eli, by the way, we need you to bake a cake before you, like, while you're jumping over the fence." I'm like, what? How? You have to adapt. You have to pivot. Okay. So sometimes when that happens, it means that our integrity is going to be challenged. You might get pulled in one direction. Have to make do with circumstances, and you're not doing exactly what you idealize. Okay. Instead of seeing those as failures, I would say just adjust the thinking so that it's part of the plan, right? Like, make your quote-unquote failures, that's the wrong word, I don't like that word, but make your failures simply part of the plan along the way. And so all of a sudden, if it's now part of the plan, now there's not as much of a guilt response when you do fall off, right? But the one thing that you shouldn't do is, when life does happen, okay, those silly moments that force you to adapt and pivot, when that does happen, make sure that you learn from each of those experiences. So do not let a shortcoming bypass you without learning from it. So that evening, go over it in your mind, right? Okay, why did that happen? What would I improve, right? So use that, dwell on it, and make sure you improve on it. And then when you're doing that, then you can have as many slip-ups as you want, but it's all leading up to the goalpost at the at the end of the way, right? Just make it part of the plan, and it'll feel a lot better.
Did you guys know that he's a stuntman? Does everyone in here know that? He didn't share, so I just wanted to make sure. How cool is that? It's the fruit.
All right, I had one more question, but we're gonna move to the Q&A because I want to hear y'all's questions, and so couple guidelines for the Q&A. When you say the question, I'm gonna give a brief repetition of the question so that the interpreters can interpret it, and for the speakers, it's not 100% necessary. Every speaker doesn't have to answer every question, necessarily. And the other thing is you can also respond to another speaker. If one speaker says something, then another speaker can respond. There should be like an open dialogue. You don't have to wait for me to have permission to speak. And I think that's about all the guidelines. So with that, and also please don't be shy. Like Jules said,
be vulnerable.
If you're feeling vulnerable, this is a no judgment zone. So whatever your question is, this is a safe space to ask it. So please go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to say thank you guys all for being on social media and fighting the good fight for all of us who are not willing to be vulnerable. So it's amazing, really. Thank you for that. Mine's is kind of like pick your question. One would be, is there anything? So I appreciate Dr. O'Reilly that you said, there's not a danger, but just an awareness to have, following this lifestyle. Is there any other kind of dangerous practice or way people are leading? Like, you feel might be like dangerous if we keep going down that route from the general kind of fruitarian community, or whatever we already whatever. That, or if you want to pick a different question, like what's like either something that's inspiring you right now, like a book or a documentary or something that you think everyone should look into, and that's maybe the future of how you see things going.
Well, I can speak to the dangers and the fails. I have an article called "Why People Fail on a Raw Vegan Diet," and from my practical experience and the empirical evidence that I've seen for decades is, I don't know if any of you have attended my talk today. It was on the 7 different raw vegan diets. So yeah, if you're eating an unhealthy, we all know there's unhealthy vegan diets, right? There's definitely unhealthy vegan diets, and then there's a range. There's healthy vegan diets. Well, the same thing applies to the raw vegan community. We don't tend to think of that, but it does. So if you're eating in such a way where what you're eating is not providing what I call enough of all of the nutrients the body requires to provide you with optimal health, over the decades that can be dangerous. That can lead you to not thrive. So that's why getting information is very important. Make sure you acquaint yourself with all the different versions of raw vegan diet. I don't say the raw vegan diet because that implies there's just one. So there's many different ones, and so I'm doing a raw vegan diet. Well, which one are you doing? I ask people that. Which one are you doing? And they don't know how to answer that. Like they didn't know there was more than one version of it. So there's a danger. Another danger could be, and Dr. Early spoke about protein earlier. Is it possible to not get enough protein on a raw vegan diet? A lot of people will say, no, you're going to get all the protein you need, no problem. I've counseled people who didn't get enough protein on a raw vegan diet. But why? Because they weren't living properly. They were sedentary, not active at all, so they were eating their according to their caloric needs. They weren't eating enough food. Okay, fruits have protein, but they don't have tons. So you don't want to cook the fruit, but you also don't want to not eat enough of it. So you need to be active enough to warrant eating enough food, and you need a variety of foods in your diet. I had a friend who said, I'm eating a raw vegan diet, and I'm eating 2 things, oranges and bananas. That's all I'm eating. And I'm like, no, that's a super narrow diet. You're not going to get enough of all the essential amino acids, which is what the body uses to make protein. So it's kind of a misnomer. The diet provides amino acids. It provides protein, which the body breaks down into amino acids to make the proteins we need. So you have to have variety in your diet, and you have to be active enough to warrant eating enough food, and then you'll have no problem getting protein. But so it is technically possible, and I've counseled people who've done it. So once you find out these things about how you can go wrong and read my article on why people fail on a raw vegan diet, then just don't do those things and you'll be fine.
I have seen that some people, like, they think that fruitarian is only fruit. And I have seen people really get into trouble with that. There has to be a lot of variety, like what Don just said, there has to be a lot of variety, and I believe greens absolutely need to be included. And there are people who live in tropical places where they're getting more minerals in their fruit, but most people are not living in tropical places. A lot of people are living in northern climates, and I know that I need to eat greens. So very, very important to get those minerals in, because we're not getting enough minerals in fruit that has been shipped. And there was one other thing I had wanted to point out. Not remembering it right now, but that like really stands out to me with something that I see frequently, is that people say, oh, I'm eating all this fruit and I don't digest fats well. Oh, and I just remembered the other thing. You need to listen to yourself intuitively, like when you're eating. And if something isn't quite right, like I know when I have had too much fat, I start having a runny nose almost immediately. And so I know that I've had too much fat. And a lot of times if I've had too much fat one day, the next day, I'm not eating as much fat. And I feel like it sort of balances out. But I really listen to how I'm feeling after I eat. And that's one thing that I've noticed, not only with myself, but with other people after they eat too much fat. So I just really feel like you have to listen to your own body.
I think I would also add that it can be easy to be lulled by the cleanliness of a raw vegan diet, but at the end of the day, the rest principle is always in application, right? You can eat to excess regardless of what you're eating, regardless of how clean, and it's something to keep in mind, because otherwise people feel that they can just eat all day, and as long as it's clean food, then they're all right. But no, you do need a rest, and that principle is always there. So good to keep in mind.
Dangerous practices is not looking or seeking medical attention when you need it. Some people want to keep, again, people think that fasting, dry fasting, right, or water fasting, like 30 days and all of that is gonna solve their issues. Many times it's some imbalance, and that can only be corrected in the emergency department. So learn to see when it's an emergency, and don't rely on a fast or something magical, right? The medical system is very good at rescuing people from death, right? So learn to discern when it's an emergency and when something can, take long to resolve. And about the inspiring things that I'm doing, I think knowing the capabilities of our bodies as we get older, like I'm a very heavy advocate right now to preserving muscle mass and bone density, so fitness, and especially as women, it's very good to feel your muscles and see what they can do for you.
One thing I want to add. Yeah, I think this is important because I've seen this for many years now. Labeling everything detox. Right? And yeah, literally people are nodding. So when you have symptoms, to learn to discern what kind those symptoms are, and as my two colleagues already started to allude to this, you could have symptoms of deficiency, you could have symptoms of degeneration, or you could have symptoms of detoxification. But labeling everything detox, that's just detox. So therefore you fall in this trap of fasting or doing something to try to get rid of the symptoms, and yet you're suffering because you're deficient in something. And that can be a slippery slope, because people then, if you are deficient in something, you start to not be able to think clearly and make rational decisions because you're nutrient deficient. So be very cautious, especially if you're around people that just say, oh, that's just detox, it'll pass or whatever. You have to learn how to discern symptoms correctly, which, as a clinician, I've had to do for quite a while now.
please.
I just want to know how you guys handle the social aspect of family and friends and children that don't want to eat that way. When I was raising my kids, I didn't want to eat the way I was. It's really hard. Or like go to a family event and bring something that's vegan and everyone's just making fun of you the whole time. They don't understand you. And I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, but that social pressure seems like especially that's been the hardest part for me. And I've been trying to do this now for 10 years, but that's just a big hurdle for me. And I don't, until today, I didn't know anyone in Kansas City that I could connect with.
Yeah, you gotta find your community and you gotta put on your own parties. Because I had the hardest time staying raw when, like right now, I eat cooked quinoa, steamed veggies. Everything else is raw. And that's just because where I'm at with my body. But when I was fully raw the last 7-8 years, I always had a hard time and felt down during the holidays because my family would be like, well, can you like eat fruit? Like they didn't understand what vegan meant, and then I would be like sitting alone with like a carrot on my plate, and they'd all be like eating everything, and they're like, I don't understand, you're thin, why are you doing this, you know? And so it was really tricky, so I just started having my own parties. And lots of people came, just like Karen would say, this is her answer too, I know. And just inviting, you need to make a new circle that you can eat with. And that's why I created the Divine Family Community, to just help people connect with people. A lot of people here today know each other because they came to the Texas Fruit Festival or because they joined an online community, and then stick eating with them until you're strong enough to be like, hey, or bring them with you to the party, you know? Like, you gotta think of it like AA or an addiction. Like, you gotta have a sober buddy with you until you're strong enough. And one day you're just like, okay, I'm just not doing that for anything.
I can speak to the friends issue. What will happen when you adopt a really radically different way of living, just in general, you will lose friends, but you'll lose the friends that you need losing, and you'll make new ones on the way. And these new ones aren't necessarily better than your old friends, they're just better for you.
That is definitely true. You will lose people who are no longer probably meant to be in your life because they're not supportive. You want to have people who are going to support you. And when you do go to parties with people, maybe they support you, but they don't necessarily eat like you. Make something delicious and bring it to share. Like I had a lot of things that my kids would prepare at home, and I got them up at the counter with me at as young as age 5 and 3, preparing food, and they learned how to create their own little menu, and they became the chefs in my kitchen. We paid them with play money, and then as they got older, it was real money, and they loved it. They loved it. So getting your kids on track with you, first of all, is really important. And then also not feeling like ashamed of it. Take food and share it, or bring like delicious fruit with you. I would bring some unusual fruit. Like I remember one time we homeschooled, but you know, not everybody was eating like me. There were a couple of people who were my friends who started making changes, but most of the people were not, but they were a little bit more open. And I would bring, like I brought a cherimoya one day, and they had never seen anything like that. So I brought fruit and I let them try different fruits, and I would bring like a delicious, I make a banana blueberry pudding pie. I would bring that to birthday parties. And sometimes I would bring food, and you know, the kids were so used to eating cake and candy, cupcakes, and what I was bringing was different. So sometimes the kids actually really loved what I was bringing, and they would try it. One time I cut out a pineapple and I made a pineapple boat, and I put all this delicious fruit inside the pineapple boat, and I brought it to an event with me, and the kids loved it so much they didn't even eat the other food. So you just have to try different things and share. I think that's really important.
Let me share with you a funny thing that happened to me. I invited friends over, and I made a salad, and I made my own dressing. And one of the women that came over and said, "Oh, you must give me the recipe for this dressing. It is so delicious." And all it was I think avocado and carrot juice or something like that. It was two items. So I gave it to her. I said, "Oh, well," I said, "Yeah, I'll give it to you." And then as she was leaving, she said, "You didn't think I was going to let you get away with not giving me that recipe. What's your recipe?" I said, "It's just ripe avocado and fresh, delicious carrots made into a juice, and you mix those two things together." So she goes, "Look, if you don't want to tell me what the recipe was, just say so, but don't make up bull crap like that." I'm like, "No, I bet you $1,000 cash that if I do that a lot, I bet people $1,000 cash to get them to do something." I said, "If you just make that, make sure the avocado is ripe and make sure the carrots, eat them first to make sure they're good sweet carrots, and then juice them." You have a juicer, yeah, she had a juicer. I said, "Just mix them appropriately to get the right consistency, and there's your." And she did it. She goes, "Oh my God." She never and I said, "And by the way, don't tell anybody, it's a healthy dressing."
And that's why Don Bennett's raw vegan recipe book is so short. It has so few ingredients in it.
I've got one more thing to say. I would say John gave a very good answer earlier, right? He said, know exactly what your motivations are. So be able to define them very, very, very sternly, very, very clearly. Because if you can, right, then you won't really need any kind of trick to deal with a social situation, right? If that motivation is ironclad, then what's going to happen is you're going to fall in love with your motivation, right? Maybe you could ask another question, right? All right, I'm able to describe exactly what I want, exactly what I'm looking for. Maybe ask another question. Is that decision dependent on the opinions of other people, right? And think about it, answer it seriously to yourself, right? Is it? Maybe ask yourself another question. Am I proud of that decision? Right? Okay, if you answer those questions in the right way, I'm telling you, you will not need any advice, right? Because you'll be proud of your decision and you'll know the reasons why you're abstaining from all the other things that everybody else in the room is doing. And so every social situation now turns into not something where you have to, oh God, okay, I better hide myself from everybody. They're gonna pull these kiwis out on this table and surreptitiously eat them. Like, you don't have to do that, right? Now you can be proud of your decision, right? You can take it as an opportunity. Social situations are an opportunity now for me, right? So it's the complete opposite, right? So you don't have to live like that. Really, if you make it a problem, it'll be a problem. But if you don't, and you just really, really own that decision, right? Do you own it?
And people start to admire you, right? And they're like, wow.
Yeah, right.
They're like, wow, that person is so strong. I
Right.
wish that I could be like them. That is so cool.
The last time I was at a wedding, okay, I brought just an obscene amount of jackfruit, okay? Just an obscene amount. It's not that I was going to eat all of it, but I brought a ridiculous amount. And so it was in this huge bag, and I just quietly put it under the table so no one could see it. And then when everyone was served their meals, I just kind of took the jackfruit out and with a knife and fork was just chopping. Everybody had their eyes on my plate. Nobody could take their eyes off it. Everybody wanted to try. I'm like, you have a bloody banquet around you. Why are you coming and bothering me with my jackfruit? People, you'll be interesting for people, right? But if you're nervous and it's not going to have the right effect. Own it, and you'll see people are going to respect you for it.
All right, we are out of time. How about one more time for our Texas Fruit Festival speakers, please? Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a very quick photo of the speakers, and then we're going to go outside and we're going to do a group photo so that this is on record that we actually did this all together. So, and then we have ecstatic dance starting at 7 o'clock in the other room. And the party continues. So one more time for the speakers, please.